one. Good afternoon. I am Alyssa Silverman, at-large council member and chair of the Committee on Labor and Workforce Development. Today is Monday, November 16th, 2020, and the time is 3:01 p.m. We are meeting virtually on the Zoom video platform. I am calling to order this hearing of the Committee on Labor and Workforce Development. Today's hearing is about Bill 23985, the Unemployment Benefits Extension Amendment Act of 2020. This legislation will allow the District of Columbia to access an additional 7 weeks of unemployment compensation under a program called Extended Benefits, which is available when the district's unemployment rate reaches a certain high level. The council has already passed emergency and temporary versions of this legislation. The permanent bill before us today will allow the district to access these benefits in the future without further legislation. Needless to say, COVID-19 and the coronavirus pandemic has deeply impacted our city, our workers, and our entire community. Not only is this a very serious public health issue, but it is an incredible economic hardship for our working families. This is why we have unemployment insurance, although we could have never imagined it being used at this scale. Unemployment is in place to keep our families and our workers stable when they lose a job through no fault of their own. And certainly that is the case with COVID-19 and the public health emergency. More than 155,000 district workers have filed for some type of unemployment compensation since the start of our public health emergency in March. And as it is said, that is unprecedented. It's 5 times the usual yearly claims for unemployment. And this pandemic, hopefully we have good news from some of our pharmaceutical companies who say that they have vaccines that have had very successful test trials, but still we will be in this public health emergency for quite some time. And at this time, it is not advisable for the public to gather in many of the places where many of our workers work. Like in the convention business, in traveling, and certainly our hotels and restaurants have been very much impacted. These are workers who cannot telecommute. And given that their industries really have been devastated by COVID-19, we need to make sure we use every tool available to help keep them stable. So that is why we are moving this legislation today. Bill 23985 is about a specific unemployment insurance program called Extended Benefits, as I mentioned earlier. Extended Benefits lets DC pay extra weeks of unemployment benefits during times of high unemployment. The Permanent and Extended Benefits Program was established in 1970, and states can access it when their unemployment rates rise significantly. And in normal times or the before times, the costs were split 50-50 with the federal government, but this year, through December 31st, 2020, the Extended Benefits Program are 100% federally financed under the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Extended Benefits has 2 tiers. The first tier is for 13 weeks, and the second tier is for 7 weeks. Under the emergency legislation, we can access tier 2 for an additional 7 weeks as long as the federal government provides full financing. Before we put this emergency legislation in place, we could only access tier 1, which was the first 13 weeks. So with the emergency and now permanent bill, we'll be able to access both the 13 weeks and 7 weeks of extended benefits. 16 other states have already implemented both tiers of the program. For those workers who are currently unemployed, please know that these benefits will be available to you soon. And I know this will apply both for our workers who are eligible for traditional unemployment, as well as for our workers who are eligible for the non-traditional PUA, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. And I know that for many of those workers, you are coming close to the exhaustion of your 39 weeks of benefits. But before we can give you these weeks of benefits, the Department of Employment Services has to implement the emergency legislation, and I know that the agency is diligently working on this. Second, unemployed workers must apply to receive the additional benefits, and you can find more information about how to do this on my website, and that is alyssasilverman.com/UI_extended benefits. I know that this is a very confusing area of policy, so I am going to give you a visual way of seeing how the extension programs will work. So at this point, I'm going to share my screen. And as you can see, and I'm going to look the other way just so I can see as well. As we explained before, there are 2 groups of workers who are eligible for some type of unemployment compensation. We have our W-2 workers who are in group 1. These are employees of a company, and they are eligible for initially for 26 weeks. When they hit 26 weeks, they are eligible for PEUC, which is Pandemic Unemployment, Emergency Unemployment Compensation. Then after that is when extended benefits kick in. And as we explained earlier, there are 2 tiers. Tier 1 is in place already, which will give you 13 weeks, and this will put tier 2 into place, giving you an additional 7 weeks. For the second group of workers we're talking about are gig workers, contract employees, 1099 workers. You are eligible for pandemic unemployment insurance or assistance, as it is called. That is 39 weeks initially, and the extended benefits we are putting into place will give you an additional 7 for a total of 46 weeks. And I'll leave that up there one more second in case somebody wants to take a photo of it. All right. Let's see here. Okay, I will note that only the regular UI program and extended benefits tier 1 will continue next year. The PEUC program, PUA, and federal funding for the extended benefits tier 2 will expire on December 31st. So we are hopeful, very hopeful, that Congress will act to extend these programs for next year, because certainly our workers will need additional help to weather the public health emergency. Let's see. All right, now back to the legislation that is the subject of today's hearing. Let's see. In the future, we want district workers to have access to as many weeks of benefits as possible, but the district does not currently have in its permanent law a way to access the Tier 2 benefits. So by making this legislation permanent, it will mean that the district will be able to tap into these extra 7 weeks of benefits anytime that 100% federal financing is available for extended benefits, and the specific measure of unemployment rate used for this program meets that threshold. So we meet that high unemployment level. Let's see. Finally, I want to note that to the public watching that the committee is continuing its work to oversee and improve the unemployment insurance system in the district. We have had 2 very long and informative hearings, and we were holding one more on Wednesday, December 9th at 9 a.m. Again, that is Wednesday, December 9th at 9 a.m. And I encourage all who have experienced the UI system, all claimants who want to give their feedback. It's so important. Please testify. You can see the notice and a lot of information about UI and the committee's work on our website, www.alyssasilverman.com. I believe we have only one public witness for this hearing, and then we have written testimony from the Department of Employment Services that, given it is very brief, I will read into the record for ease of those watching. If you would like to submit testimony for the record, you can do that several ways. You can email labor@dccouncil.us. You may also call 202-455-0153. You should leave a voicemail telling us what you want to say for the record, and we will transcribe it. Please spell your name slowly, as in, my name is Alyssa Silverman, ELISSA. We very much appreciate it, and you need to get that to us by tomorrow, Tuesday, November 17th at 5 p.m. So again, you can email labor@dccouncil.us. You can call us at 202-455-0153, and we look forward to your testimony. It is a very brief public comment period so that we can move this legislation quickly. As many of you know, we are at the end of the year and have a very limited time frame in which to move legislation to get it enacted. So that is why we have such a short comment period. As I mentioned, we have one witness to testify, and I will turn to him at this time. That is Zachary Hoffman, DC Bar and Restaurant Workers Alliance Executive Vice President. Welcome, Mr. Hoffman. You will have 5 minutes to testify since you're representing an organization. Welcome.
Hi, council member. Can you guys hear me?
It would be great to see you too, if possible.
Unfortunately, I just had my Wi-Fi disabled. I'm not sure if I'm experiencing an outage, but now I'm on my phone. So
okay, this is good enough.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. Good afternoon. Thank you, council member and committee staff, for allowing me to speak with you today. My name is Zachary Hoffman, and this morning I'm speaking on behalf of the DC Bar and Restaurant Workers Alliance. We are an inclusive worker-driven platform providing protection, empowerment, advocacy, and tangible services to the bar and restaurant workforce. I serve as the executive vice president of this organization, and my testimony today will reflect the opinions of my organization and its members. I want to first say that I have no objections to this bill. It's clear the intentions of the legislation are procedural and required for the council to make sure the programs are set within the law. I would like to use this hearing to bring to the attention of the committee the incredible number of issues workers are having currently with PUC, and more than likely issues we will have with the extended benefits program. In the public oversight hearing on unemployment in September, I and others from my organization presented examples of the struggles workers face with the unemployment system. It seems that none of those issues have been addressed, and more issues have come up when dealing with PEUC. I have been in contact with hundreds of workers explaining their situation. Several patterns have emerged as common obstacles to accessing their benefits. One of the most common is having their account flagged for out-of-state wages reported either from part-time work, freelancing, or wages being incorrectly reported by the business altogether, halting payment of the benefits until a case manager can fix the issue. Unreturned emails and long hold times continue to plague anyone in need of assistance, forcing many to wait weeks and sometimes months for any kind of response. To make things worse, workers are reporting incorrect information coming from those they get through to, or receiving conflicting messages from DOES staff when trying to fix their claims. Others simply hear nothing, being told to wait 21 days and call back, only to call back and be told to wait even longer. Just this morning, I've been in contact with over 25 workers expressing concern that they may not receive anything from unemployment, PUC, extended benefits, etc., because any number of issues they're having. I've been instructed to suggest to workers in need of support to contact the Office of Nightlife and Culture. Why is DOES incapable of dealing with their own support issues? Why do workers require assistance from outside the department to see any kind of movement on their claims? The entire workforce is confused, anxious, and uncertain on how to go about getting support. This committee has an obligation and duty to oversee DOES. Countless of workers are having issues, all of which are unique to their individual circumstances with little to no support from DOES. Workers need help, and they need it now, and we've needed it for months. I'm asking this committee to pass this bill and focus your attention on the people struggling day to day just to access the benefits outlined in this legislation and legislation passed earlier this year. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman, and we share your concerns, and we have been focused on these issues, as I think you know. In terms of the PUC extension, I am very concerned about the flagging of claims, and my understanding is that for some workers, they receive notice from DOES that they have out-of-state wages, and they have never worked in the state in which DOES claims their wages. From anecdotal evidence of workers writing to me, it appears there's largely out-of-state wages in Maryland and Virginia. We have asked the agency about this, and we're continuing to investigate what is going on. As well, we have tried to problem solve with the agency. There are many workers who do not realize, even at this point, that unemployment is only a 26-week program. And they are surprised and shocked when they do not receive benefits in the 27th, 28th, 29th week, and they're unaware that they have to apply for the extension program. My understanding from some workers is DOES is now proactively reaching out to workers to make them aware of the exhaustion of their benefits, that they are reaching the end point of the initial phase, and that they are making workers, claimants, aware that they need to apply for the extension. But I think more problem solving needs to happen, and I am continue to work with the director and the agency, and my committee has been trying to work as much as we can in solving these problems. The biggest thing we need to do is modernize the system, as you know. I don't have any questions for you today, but I do appreciate your testimony. And I will say that every email that gets sent to the Office of Nightlife also gets CC'd to me. And it gets forwarded to the agency. So thank you very much, Mr. Huffman. I appreciate your testimony.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Sure. We have testimony from the Department of Employment Services. The director was not able to join us today, but since it's so short, I think I will just read it into the record. So this is testimony from Dr. Unique Morris Hughes, who's director of the Department of Employment Services. The Department of Employment Services submits the following written statement for the record for the public hearing on Bill 23985, the Unemployment Benefits Extension Amendment Act of 2020. The purpose of this legislation is to provide eligible district claimants with an additional 7 weeks of federally funded unemployment or federal pandemic unemployment assistance benefits. DOES has worked closely with Councilmember Silverman, the Committee on Labor and Workforce Development, and the United States Department of Labor to ensure that the language in this bill complies with federal laws and regulations. Based on our research and in consultation with the Department of Labor on this proposed legislation, permanent legislation is not required at this time to provide district residents with the additional extended weeks of unemployment or PUA benefits, since the temporary version of this legislation would be in effect for the duration of the current federal funding for these benefits. However, there is consensus that permanent legislation is advisable. DOES recommends moving forward with this permanent legislation to ensure that any future federally funded weeks of extended benefits are available to district claimants. The sections of the DC Code amended by this proposed legislation were initially drafted in 2009 in response to the Great Recession. Today, the Council and DOES are amending them to respond to the unprecedented COVID-19 public health emergency. The COVID-19 related stimulus funding in both the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, known as the CARES Act, and the Families First Coronavirus Response Families First Act are both set to expire at the end of the calendar year. However, the current public health emergency and corresponding economic emergency are far from over. The district government fervently hopes for additional economic stimulus legislation. If such necessary legislation is passed, Mayor Muriel Bowser and DOES are committed to ensuring that district residents and claimants are poised to take advantage of every possible benefit. The language in this bill would allow district claimants to take advantage of extended benefits so long as, quote, 100% federal sharing is available under Section 4105 of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, approved March 18, 2020, Families First Act, or any subsequent amendment to the Families First Act or other federal law. DOES strongly believes that this language may be necessary in the future, either in response to the current public health emergency or as part of a future economic response to an unforeseen event. We urge the Council to pass this legislation and look forward to our continued work with the committee to ensure district claimants are receiving the maximum amount of benefits available during this pandemic. I want to thank the agency for their testimony. We did work collaboratively together on this, so I do want to thank Director Morris Hughes and her legislative team for their collaboration and cooperation, as well as the U.S. Department of Labor. I want to thank Mr. Hoffman. I want to thank the agency for their participation and look forward to any other public comments that might be submitted before tomorrow at 5 p.m. As a reminder, we accept all written testimony for the record or testimony via voicemail until tomorrow at 5 p.m. You can email labor@dccouncil.us or call 202-455-0153 to leave a voicemail. There being no further business before the committee today, I hereby adjourn this roundtable of the Committee on Labor and Workforce Development, and the time is 3:26 p.m. Thank you all very much.